On my morning drive, I recorded a video, my last video, and I was talking about my experience meeting Christ and what I've learned from it. And one thing that I briefly touched on was the atheist's argument that if God is all powerful, then why does suffering exist? You know, something that I've heard my entire life and something that I believed so wholeheartedly for such a long time. I'm sure people have been saying this for thousands of years, but you know, the Richard Dawkins argument that if God was all powerful and he was good, then he would not allow for suffering. And what I said in my last video is that, well, if God is real, then all suffering is justified. And that is such an obvious, self-evident statement in my mind now. And it was before, when I had knowledge of God, and it is cemented and truer than ever to me now that I have experienced a direct presence of God in my life. And I feel I have met Christ, and I truly felt the presence of God, not in some like in a way that it was the only presence. The only presence in that moment was God. I was integrated into God for a moment. And I just wanted to talk about this idea that atheists always bring up, and this ridiculous concept that sadness and death and destruction and all of the sin and evil in this world is evidence for God's absence, or evidence for the lack of a loving God. And I think that the reason that the argument is ridiculous is because you can only make that argument from an atheist point of view. You can only believe that if you don't believe in what Christianity and what God promises us. Because as a Christian, it is true to us that this life is temporal. This life is an extremely small, short, it's like the blink of an eye. In the face of eternity, this life is the blink of an eye. And it feels like everything to us. This life feels very long, and it feels like to us, you know, however long you're alive, 70 years, 80 years, that feels like a long time subjectively. But if you believe in the Bible, if you believe in Christ, if you believe in what we are told by Christianity, then of course suffering is something that is completely justified by God's existence, because there is a purpose for it. And there's a purpose for our existence in our life here. And the purpose is not to be in eternal bliss. Perhaps that is what is destined for us after this life. But I always just found it so, ever since I became religious, I always found it so ludicrous to suggest that evil, suffering, pain, all of these things are evidence that God is not loving. Because the fundamental belief that you hold as a Christian, or probably almost any religious person, is that this life is a temporal thing. It is only on the timeline of eternity a moment. And if you understand that God is love, literally God is love. He is an infinite, boundless love. And you were created with that love. You were created by that love, from that love. If you understand that, and if you're a Christian, essentially you believe that. I mean, of course there is a diversity of viewpoints and opinions among Christians, but essentially as a Christian, you believe that death is not real. Death, you die and you leave this earth, you leave this plane of existence to reunite with the Lord, to go into another life, essentially, another place, a place that's infinite. And if that is the case, then why would I believe that God is evil or God is uncaring or unloving for allowing me to suffer? Wouldn't that suggest the fact that infinity is beyond us, is in front of us, and is waiting for us? Wouldn't you logically immediately conclude that all things here, just even if they are harrowing and unfathomably evil and painful, wouldn't they all be immediately justified by that fact? Of course they would. Of course everything would be justified, because you will find your eternal resting place. You will rest. You will be healed immediately and instantaneously from every bit of that pain by God. So an atheist, of course, it's easy for them to believe that God is mean, he's a bad guy, he's wrathful, vengeful, he's not loving enough to give us this false world and this false life where we don't have agency and we live in eternal bliss. Of course, that's part of their argument, because they have no they are completely disconnected from the idea that this is not the only life. Right? So their argument betrays their ignorance of the Christian position. Their argument is completely useless to us. It has no bearing on our worldview. It only makes sense in their worldview, a worldview where we are going to perish and die, where there is no salvation, there is no love for us beyond this world. In that case, if in fact God was not real, then of course we would think, wow, why would all this suffering be here? There must not be a force for good in this universe that is protecting us. But who are we even to define being protected in the first place? Who are we as human beings, if God exists? Like, as an atheist, sit and think about it. I know you don't believe in God, but take this thought experiment. If God was real, if God was infinite, and we were going to reunite with God upon our death, wouldn't that mean that all of this suffering is justifiable? Of course it would. So your argument holds no water. It holds no weight. And another thing that I think is important to note is that even if God is all powerful, okay, he can do anything, all right? He could come in here and subject us to a prison world where everyone's happy, which that's what it would be, by the way, because in order to have free will, you need to have the ability to act. And when you act in a world with other people, you have the ability to do evil. If you don't have the ability to do evil, you are actually not alive. You are an automaton. It's like playing The Sims. In order for us to have this experience of life, this subjectivity, in order for us to be granted existence itself, agency and consciousness and existence, they're all one, right? You cannot exist without agency, without a mind to think and a body to act. You do not have agency. Therefore, you are not human. You are not real. You are not actually a creature. You are a thing. You're a program. Which is why I described it as, if God was able to prevent, the only way to prevent evil in this world would be to effectively turn us into a computer program that, it's like, imagine an AI that has guardrails. It's not allowed to speak on certain topics. Is that AI conscious? Is it real, or is it simply a program that's executing on a prompt? So a fundamental prerequisite for being alive is having agency, having domain, and having a will, having control over your own self. Without the control over your own self, you don't have consciousness. Consciousness and that are inseparable. It is a fundamental feature of consciousness to have the ability to act as you please. So, in order for us to exist, evil must be permitted. This is like so blatantly true. And I challenge anyone to even find any way to refute this fact. That if there were parameters around our ability to act, our ability to exert our will in this world, if there were limits and parameters on it, we would not be conscious beings. We would not be alive. It would be a computer program that was running. Free will and determination are the prerequisite for life. Anything that doesn't have those characteristics is not alive. So, when we were all created, when we are put here in this world, it's a sad reality, but it's only sad if you see it through a certain lens. It's actually fucking beautiful. But we have the ability to do wrong, do harm, and do evil. And in fact, it's impossible really for us to not do wrong in some way, to not let someone down, to not hurt someone, to not fall short, because we're not God, we're not Christ. So I just wanted to talk about that because it's like, I'm sick of hearing ideas that are so rudimentary, they're so childlike. Like, if you actually think about these things for a couple of seconds, you realize that the only way for us to exist is to be granted full autonomy. And our autonomy comes with consequences. And the consequences of that are, according to Christianity, they're going to be, it's our responsibility, right? And the beauty of Christianity is it recognizes this innate truth. And Christ came and he actually died for our sins, and we're forgiven. It's so perfect. It's so unbelievably perfect. The premise that Christianity puts forward is so perfectly aligned with what you logically will come to conclude when you actually analyze what this existence is. And that's what drew me to Christianity in the first place, and what has now solidified my faith in such an extremely strong way was experiencing God, which reaffirmed everything that logic told me. Because the proposition of Christianity is perfectly aligned with all of the evidence and the elements of reality that we see every single day. So anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. It's been on my mind lately ever since I had an experience about a week ago where I was visited by Christ. It's like my perspective is so changed, because when Christ showed himself to me, presented himself to me, he was love without bounds and limits, infinite. A love that you have in this human realm never conceived of and never felt anything. It was so powerful. It was the most powerful force I've ever felt. But he wasn't just love. He was truth. It's like, like the hippies. I don't know much about Buddhism, but I know that there's sort of a lot of people that have these beliefs of like, we are, the universe is God, right? The universe is God. And I get where they're seeing that from. I get that. I really do. Because God was the truth. God was the truth when I met him. He is the truth. He is love. He is the truth. And when I say he is the truth, I mean he is everything logic, all logic, all reason. That's God. God didn't create logic and reason and give it to us. He is logic and reason. And the reason we live in an ordered universe, a universe where we can speak, a universe where we can interact, a universe where there are rules, there are rules of physics, laws of physics, is because all of that is God's structure. It is part of God. And it's a gift. So anyways, yeah, thanks for listening.